for the person who needs to understand that you're not crazy. Okay, you're not crazy. You're just being DARVO'd. It's a psychological term that I discovered when somebody said to me, "You're being DARVO'd," and it's defend, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. First, they try to defend what they do. When that doesn't work, they try to attack you, right? And then they turn around and reverse the victim and offender and make it seem like they're the victim and you're the offender. That's not okay. Google did this Project Aristotle where they looked at what were the most effective teams, and they found that the most effective teams were the ones that had psychological safety. But what they didn't do was, as part of the study, outline all the ways a leader can provide psychological safety. I mean, there's some information out there, but I wanted to make this book. At first, I started out being all ambitious, like ambitious Amervis is always trying to conquer the world. I was like, 100 ways. I can come up with 100 ways that we can provide psychological safety. And then I quickly realized that as I started to type them up, I didn't want it to be just another leadership book. You can get another leadership book with all the theory. There's thousands of them. But what I wanted to do was integrate the real life stories that we all go through and make sure that for every single one, there was an actual story that was an example of what that looks like. Both bueno, as I said, is bueno is good and no bueno is not good. I thought about that and I said, not only do I want the young emerging leaders who are coming up next, who are already here, they're already in charge, to break the cycle of toxic leadership. First, you lead yourself, and then you can lead your teams, and then you can lead the organization. But if you can't even lead yourself, and you can't even recognize what you're doing wrong as a leader, then it's never going to work. You're never going to see that your turnover, and a lot of it has to do with you, that your inability to have a team that innovates has to do with you, that your performance metrics being low has to do with you as a leader. You can make all the excuses you want, but the first step is looking in the mirror and checking out what's going on with you.
That is so well explained. As I look at the entirety of what you're talking about, I start to see those counselors who helped you fill out the forms as
Mhm.
your first psychological safety zone.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't getting psychological safety ever in my career because I did start out early on in my career reporting to women, primarily, coincidentally, who provided psychological safety. And I had no idea what it was. But when you have contrast, when you have psychological safety, and then you get promoted to another level and you get none, or you go to another organization where you don't have it, you realize real quick how valuable it is. It took me back to a lot of the stuff where they talked about Covey's work, The 7 Habits. And I always talk about The 7 Habits because I think it was my very first leadership book where I realized the importance of not just talking about it, but being about it and how important integrity is. And I took that seriously, just like I took the Pledge of Allegiance seriously. And then I didn't realize that it was aspirational. Same thing with corporate environment. They post all these values and they put the EEOC in the break room and, they tell you how inclusive they are in their videos to get you to come work there. And you get there and you're like, it's all lip service. They say bias is not the sharks, bias is the water. Career that spans more than 2 decades. I've created something that will be very fruitful, not just for emerging young professionals and leaders, but anyone who's in a leadership role who might need some refreshers or some different tips on how we can be more effective as leaders and provide that psychological safety that we all deserve.